Well, hey, everybody, it is Casey J. Cox with the Quarterback Dadcast. We're in season 6. You can see me on YouTube now, thanks to my boy Ishmeet, who got us going here. We got some marketing clips. We're actually legit. We're not just on Spotify and Apple, but we're now, you can see a couple bald dudes, which is going to be fun. And our next guest, I actually connected with him like about a year ago, and then we reconnected. We have a lot of similar connections in common, being living in the wild world of staffing. His name is Jeff Staats. He is the founder of Forest City Digital. He's the founder of Command
MarketingQB.
MarketingQB. We'll learn more about that.
Yeah.
He's a blue streak or Lobo. I'm not sure. We're going to learn more about that. He does not have his Bernie Kosar jersey on like I really was expecting. He might be in the dog pound. I'm not sure that either, but that has nothing to do with why we're having him on. We're going to talk to Jeff, the dad, and we're going to learn all about how he is working hard to become the ultimate quarterback or leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Staats, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thank you, Casey. Appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's like between two bald dudes. Like that's gonna be the thing. But yeah, you're freshly shaven, man. I am not. Like I still there's still some shine here, so it's okay. But
Do you bick it?
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many? I'm like every 2 days now.
I'm close to like every 4 days. It was like every 2 weeks. And then like it's funny, like now I'm like, man, this looks long. Like, oh my God, I think
You're like
like
a
it's gonna
chia pet.
cover my eyes. Like and I start feeling it. It's like it's over there. I'm like, oh my God, like it's too long. Nope, I gotta go do it.
You're gonna have to start using mousse on that.
I know. I know. It's gonna be sweet.
All right. Well, joking aside, I think I heard you with LJ and Rob and Leslie Kardak,
Yep.
or Jeff,
Yeah,
or
we were
maybe it
doing
was.
the You Own the Experience podcast. We usually do like an annual marketing predictions for staffing. And I think we've done that like 3 years in a row or something like that. Yeah,
Love it.
it's always good.
Well, I'm excited to learn more about you. I appreciate you making time with us
Yeah.
today. We always start each episode with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
Um, I'm grateful for, I have three boys and I'm 16, 14, and 9. And I'm a type A person. And so like I control everything. Like when I was growing up, I controlled, like I was talking to the guidance counselors. My parents didn't know what was going, like I was controlling, I'm going to this college and all this other stuff. So like I expect that. And I know most kids, especially kids this generation, they don't even know how to turn a toaster on or do anything. And it's especially with two kids in high school, it's been really awesome to see their journey and like they're becoming like adults ish. And I'm like, and it's like honestly, I remember just having that thought the last couple weeks. I'm like, oh my God, these, the ones driving, and it's been really great just to see them navigate life. And it's hard for me because I want to navigate everything for them and tell them exactly what to do and quarterback and their life. But like it's really cool, like just to see all of that. And it's this first semester where my freshman, he came in. So two of them are at the same high school. They're interacting. They don't like they hate each other, but they love each other. So like it's really cool to see them just kind of like navigating this awkward teenage years.
Love it, man. Well,
Yeah.
I remember when my kids were at the 16 and 14. Now I have 18 and 16. That's just a couple years ahead of you, and it is going fast, man, as you probably well aware know. And what I'm grateful for is we're recording everybody in December. This episode will come out early in 2025. But what I'm grateful for is just the noise in the house again. I love having my son home from college, and my daughters were right in the middle of high school basketball. So I'm grateful for to be able to watch her compete and play. And but it's just fun having both kids here when they are here. But it's because I know come like 3 weeks now, he'll be back to college and be like, hey, where's my dude?
Right.
So
Right. Oh yeah.
I will warn
That's
you, when they
awesome.
go off to college, I don't know if you have buddies who have kids in college yet, that first week is awful.
That's what I heard. I've got some friends that have like now they've got like freshmen in college, and it's funny they talk about they're like I cannot wait till they're gone. I can do whatever they want, and it's I can't remember the one movie where like I think it was Hall Pass where like the wife the guys are they're like I don't know what to do. Should go to Applebee's or something like I don't and yeah I could see where it's like oh my goodness like now what do I do like I'm sad I don't have like those random conversations like oh.
Well, he was my sports dude. So like we're like hockey fans now, like with the Kraken. So we watch all the Kraken games. We watch
Oh
Mariner
yeah.
games, Seahawks. It's like, But what's crazy, he's got me into Snapchat, which I'd never in my wildest dreams thought I'd have Snapchat. I'm like, bro, I'm 48. What do I need
Wow.
to be on Snapchat for? But like, we got a, I know what a snap streak is now, Jeff. I got like
Holy
104.
crap.
Yeah, look at me, dude. Not messing around.
I don't even know. Like, I'm the worst as a marketer. I don't even get on social media. Like, I've got Facebook because I have to, and it's usually for asking for donations and raffle tickets for my kids' sports teams. And then I have like LinkedIn because I'm all over LinkedIn, and you got to practice what you preach. But I don't have anything else. And I'm like, and people are like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I don't know." They talk about Snapchat. I'm like, "Oh, I just snapped him, and he's gonna go pick me up." I'm like, What the hell does that mean? Like, I
You know,
don't even know what that means."
it's crazy. So the only reason well, two reasons I got on Snapchat. A, my son taught me, but I interviewed a dad who had kids to go to college, and I was told him I was worried about that. He's like, "You want to stay in touch with your kids?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally." Do. He goes, "Get on Snapchat." I'm like, "Dude, I'm not getting on Snapchat." He's like,
Right?
"Didn't you say you want to stay close?" I'm like, "All right." So I kind of like wasn't sure if he's telling me the truth. So he will respond back to a snap quicker than a text.
Yeah. Honestly, I felt that. Like, I was texting my son like one time to pick him up. He was at a baseball training, and I'm texting him like, I'm outside. I'm here. I'm here. And then he gets in the car and he's like, "I don't check text. Like, why didn't you snap me?" I'm like, "Oh, man, is that another thing?" Like, I don't know how to get into that. Now I'm the curmudgeon old guy. I'm like, I don't know. You figure it out. Here's the phone. Figure it out.
I'll be your snap mentor.
Oh,
We'll
you could, yeah. You could snap coach. You could be my snap coach.
we'll start like that's a new LinkedIn group, dude. Snap for
That's
dads.
it. That's it. You could be snap coach, snap therapy, snap coach.
Oh
Oh
Jesus.
man, you could have a whole business on navigating dads in Snapchat.
I'm talking to my lawyer tonight. I'm gonna get this in. Actually, I probably just got sued by Snapchat. Hey, you're getting free
Yeah, you
marketing with
probably did.
Snapchat.
Snap certified. You
Right,
could be
exactly.
like, yeah, I'll go through a training program to get snap certified. You can handle all the
Uh,
material.
I almost snorted right there, everybody. But look, it got
Well,
blocked
I got your
somehow.
new revenue stream. So you're like, give me a little bit of cut, just 10%. That's it.
You're gonna market it for me. We're gonna use Forrest Digital.
Yeah, yeah. Snap coach. I'll be the before and after.
Oh, so good.
That's
Okay,
funny.
well, bring me. So we got a 16, 14, and 9. I want to hear how you and your wife met, and I want to hear a little bit about what each boy's up to.
Okay. All right. So yeah. So my wife and I met in college. So we went to a small liberal arts college right by in Cleveland, right by the airport, Hopkins International Airport, but it's like literally 2 miles away. We were going there. I was a year older in school, and it was funny. Small school, 2,800 students, maybe 1,200 live on campus, and never talked to her in college. Like for the 3 years that we actually were to like crossed over, never talked to her. I think she yelled at me once for something like it was some sort of drama or something like that. But she didn't know who I was. I didn't know who she was. And then I was actually, when I graduated, I went back to school to visit a friend of mine because she's like, "Hey, would you want to come back and visit?" I'm like, "Sure, whatever." And my wife was her roommate. And so it was funny. Like this was September, I think, or something. And I don't know what, I mean, I'm terrible with faces, names, everything. So it probably doesn't help me at all. But I'm looking and I'm like, who is that? And like I think my roommate or the my friend who was her roommate liked me, so she was like, "Oh, don't worry about her or whatever." I'm like, "No, like I'm gonna go talk to her," and she was so mad, and so we talked that day. I got her phone number, and then we just started talking. Went on a date like maybe 3 weeks later, something like that, and then that was 20. What is that? 23, no, 24 years ago. So married in 2005, and yeah, I mean that was it. But it was a crazy, it was just funny. And that, I think that roommate still pissed at me about that. Like she was like, she was just the delivery, but like it was, yeah, she was so mad about it. So yeah, it's been awesome. And then yeah, the kids. So I've got three boys: Colin, who's 16; Dylan, who's 14; Drew, the bruiser, who's 9. In typical, you know, first, second, third kid fashion. First kid is um, he's sort of my like kind of hippie kid, and just kind of lives by his own rules, does whatever. He's actually a runner, so he runs cross country and track, and um, he gets good grades, but he wants to think about things more than just kind of like believe in the grading system and stuff like that. So it's funny. He's like always on his phone, and like we thought he was. It was funny. We there was one time, I think it was 5 years ago, we thought he was looking at something inappropriate because he was always like on his phone, and like we had like one of those like Kindle iPad or fires, whatever those fires were, the and so like he would go around and he would like he would look at the fire and then like turn away or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, I think he was maybe 11 or something like that. We're like, oh, he's looking at something inappropriate. Like maybe I didn't put parental locks, as much of them on there or whatever. Turns out he was looking at minivans because he was so fascinated with like the doors
That is
open, like
inappropriate.
yeah, and we were like, yeah, I'm like, well, I'm not buying a minivan, so like, I to this day I haven't bought a minivan, but like, but it was funny, like it's just he's so inquisitive and just like, and he is a content creator's dream because he watches every series, like he'll do his work, then he'll come home and he just wants to consume content, and so it's fascinating to me because I hated reading. Like I was sports. Like I mean, I could pick things up fast and I have a photographic memory. So that basically said that I couldn't explain anything, but I could remember things, which at least I got good grades because of that. But he is just constant consumer of information, which is great. He's a junior in high school now, so it's all college visits and trying to figure it all out and everything. Dylan's my sports guy. He's very much like me. Looks like my wife, but very much my mentality of basically, yeah, like everything comes easy, and you're just blessed with like, yeah, I don't really have to study. I don't do this. I don't do that. And it's funny. He was always a little bit shy with that, and now he's getting a little cocky. It's that freshman cockiness, But I like it because he's in baseball, and that's kind of the if you're not the dude, you're not the dude. So he's kind of learned to be the dude, and so he's been doing travel ball for the last 5 or 6 years. Doing well. I mean, he's in a good team. The high school that they both go to is like a top 10 baseball high school in the state of Ohio. So it's challenging. It's competitive, which he's like, hey, if I don't make it, I don't make it. I'm going to school because it's a good school and I'll get a good education. And I'm like, hey, that's great. Do
Love
what
it.
you need to do. So he's doing that. And then my 9-year old is like, I always think of him like, maybe what would that be? Probably 12 years from now, like saying like Drew Stats, Iowa, like where he's like a lineman or something like that. He's my bruiser, and he's a typical third kid, you know, jerk, like uncoachable, doesn't apply himself at all, like wrestles everybody, and it's just so funny. So like, yeah, he's bored with everything. Like it's like there is no poker face with this kid at all, and it's funny. So he's in a bunch of sport, baseball and football is like his sports, and but he's gonna be like 6'2", 6'3", and just a bruiser.
Mm. Love it. So back to John Carroll. Is it the blue
Yeah,
streak or is it Lobo?
blue streak, blue
Okay.
streak. Yep. So I went there for grad school.
Okay. There we go. I have a random fascination with mascots and how I associate people. So I saw that and I was like, wonder if he's gonna. And sometimes it's like when I talk to people, they're like, "How the hell did you pull that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I just did a little research and pulled out of
That's
nowhere."
good, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did grad school there, and then I actually teach. I teach an entrepreneurship class, adjunct professor there, so it was cool. I've taught around, like I've taught at Kent State University, University of Akron, Notre Dame College, which is a smaller one, and then just started teaching at John Carroll. So it was cool to go back um, to to where I went to grad school because I've always admired the business school. So yeah, it's cool.
very
Love
cool,
it.
man.
They got a
Professor
lot of NFL
Stats.
players. Professor, yeah, they call it like one of my buddies has Professor Jeff as my name in his phone. And I'm
So
like,
good.
well, at least it wasn't anything worse than that. Like, it wasn't like,
Officer
damn jerk
Dickweed.
or, yeah, like, well, I saw the one, like, there was, if you watch Yellowstone, there was a very inappropriate name that was on the Beth's phone, the character in there. And I was like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. But I cannot say it on your
I
podcast.
well, I can always
Being
make E, but
family friendly.
okay.
Yeah.
um, real quick before you made me think of something. I wrote down a note. So we talking about when kids are now like you being grateful and seeing your kids do a lot for themselves. I went through that because I was the dad doing way too much for my kids as a younger. Like didn't realize I was doing it until actually COVID made me realize, oh my God, I'm doing way too much for my kids. And I told my wife the same thing because we had all the time in the world. I'm like, no, make your own lunch. Sorry, no, fold your own laundry.
Oh, yeah.
And we're like, listen, it's not like I don't want to do it for you, but if I keep doing it for you, you don't learn, and then you're going to be living in a van down by the river. It's like
Right.
and so there's this book I read. I'm having this guy on the podcast in like season 1. His name's Swen Nader, and he
Okay.
wrote a book called "You Have Not Taught Until They Have Learned." And
Nice.
it's a short book, easy to read. And this dude's story, he actually played for John Wooden, and
Okay.
John Wooden recruited him, and his recruiting pitch was, Swen, come play for me, but you're never going to play. You'll barely get into the game, but I guarantee I'll get to the NBA. And he's like, how the hell you can do that? How the hell you can do that? He's like, well, you're going to play against the best player in America every day at practice. His name's Bill Walton. So he played against
Oh,
Walton every
wow.
day. And so he literally mopped up minutes, but he played 12 years in the NBA.
Damn.
Yeah.
Hey, that works,
Pretty
man.
cool story. So
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway,
It
so
is
dads,
true, though.
you have
Like,
not taught until I've learned. If you're looking for a random book for any of your
that's
dads or
good.
okay, well now I like taking the conversation to you, my man, and I want to learn like what was life like growing up for you, and talk about the impact your parents had on you now that you're dad right now.
So, yeah, I mean, it was, I was born in Chicago. My dad was transferred. He actually played, football. He played baseball and football in high school and college, and he was always a hero. He actually looked like Clark Kent. He had the Clark Kent glasses. He's like 6'2", like kind of guy or whatever. And so, growing up, he was always and I think Luke Combs sings a song about that, like where it's like, I think it was I can't remember the title of it, but it talks about the S on his chest but like it was good. It was typical growing up. I think that I enjoyed the early years. My sister is 9 years younger than I am, so I was an only child for 9 years. So I had a lot of attention on me, and so it's funny when I talk to other dads or just other people who are only children. I'm like, oh yeah, I get that. Like, there's always a little bit like a little off on that, and I'm like, yep, I get it. And but yeah, I mean, it was a good upbringing. I mean, my parents, are still married. They celebrated their 50th this year.
Wow.
And so, I think because of that and just, what they've been able to do and express and everything. I mean, it's one of those things where you want to emulate it, in a lot of ways. And, they gave me, it was funny. They gave me and they didn't give me the opportunities that I probably deserved. And so, like, because a lot of times, like, you can ask for everything, but like, you either have to work for it or you've got to, like, there were things that I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to play soccer and go to travel and all that stuff. And they're like, no, you're not going to play. Like, I don't think that you actually are invested in it. So we're not going to do it. And, because in the 80s, you played every sport. It wasn't like you have to specialize when you're 3. Like, you
Yeah.
played every sport. So every season you played something new. So like, I was always playing sports, and it was funny. I played the traditional baseball, football, soccer, basketball, and then I wound up playing high school and college tennis. Like, I started playing tennis when I was 12,
Wow.
and like, but like, they supported all the way through there. Tennis is an expensive sport, so they could only do what they could do. And but it like taught me resiliency, and that if you're going to invest in me, I got to invest in me. So it was a lot of cool life lessons. And even being a marketer, like, I always equated myself to like Alex P. Keaton, like, says I love Family Ties. So like, I knew I wanted to be a marketer at 16. I was walking around with a briefcase. I knew I wanted to do commercials. Like I told you earlier, I was type A. So my parents, I felt bad for my sister. She got the brunt of, like, she couldn't do anything by herself. My parents babied her because they thought, like, they're like, well, we don't want them, her to turn out like Jeff, where he's just like I was like, hey guys, I'm going to Baldwin Wallace College for my undergrad, and then I'm going to go to John Carroll for my grad. And they're like, you're 17 years old. And I'm like, yeah, like, this is what I'm going to do. And they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, I already talked to the counselor. I got all the application stuff in. I already did all this stuff. Like, this is what I'm going to do.
Wow.
And so it was interesting. And again, good for my kids, but also bad for my kids.
Were you wired that way, or you think you were? Did you get? Did it kind of happen through like evolution? Evolution.
So I don't know. I mean, it's it's one of those things where like my uncle is a entrepreneur. Excuse me. He passed away like 3 years ago, but he had a business in Pittsburgh. Half my family's in Pittsburgh, half my family's in Cleveland, which makes for a interesting rivalry every year. But he was an entrepreneur that lived by his own rules. He passed away when he was 84, but he had a $1 billion business called Centimark. It's the North America's largest commercial roofing and flooring company.
Wow.
And so when I grew up, there was a lot of that. And I think, part my other side of my family, we had the smart side. Like we literally have a rocket scientist, one of my cousins. I have like 19 cousins. Like he's a rocket scientist, works at NASA. We've got kind of the Bon Jovi cousins that they had long hair and some of them could play instruments. The other one did air guitar. We had all these facets of stuff, but I always kind of looked at myself as my uncle and this I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to do it like, and I don't know where that came from because my dad has always been a very like, he's a saint. He will definitely, he will die a saint, and like he will do anything for anybody, the nicest guy in the world. He will do it all. My mom was the headstrong, like directing everybody. She enjoyed like telling you all what you need to do. And so I think I got a little bit of her, but it was that like I always wanted to strive for more,
Mm,
and I think that the entrepreneurial side was him.
mm,
Um, and so it was a weird thing because my dad's just like, hey, I work my job, I'm going to retire, I'm going to live in Florida, and that's good. And I'm like, I'm making more money, I'm never retiring. Like even now, I'm like, even as I start different things and making moves, I'm like, I no, I want more, 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 which causes issues when of the staying present. And that's the one thing that I struggle with, and I've always struggled with, is staying present. And I get yelled at a lot about it because you could tell when I'm not like I'm here at a resort or whatever, and I'm still like thinking like I could probably send that email campaign out. I could probably. So yeah, it's just I think that's where I got wired from, is just always hustling.
mm. There's a lot there, but I want to keep going back to pop. So, tell me what mom and dad did for jobs?
So my mom was a homemaker. So
Okay,
she
hardest
went to
job
high
out there.
school. Yeah, I mean she that was just what she wanted to do. My dad was actually he was he basically was in HR. He was in procurement. So he worked at a number of different he worked at like steel companies and different things like that. And he was just in procurement. And then up until about 30 or no, yeah, about 30 years ago. And then he actually worked for my uncle so my uncle with part of the roofing company, actually he owned a bunch of buildings in the Cleveland area. So my dad was basically the property manager. So for the last 30 years, and they're like industrial parks and all these different things, not like, little apartments or whatever. So he's actually managed a lot of his commercial real estate and doing that. So that's what he's been doing for the last 30 years or so. And it's interesting because you get to see the deals that are going on and all the different things that are happening. And that for me, that's awesome.
Mm. Do you now? Was that your dad's brother who passed away?
My mom's.
Mom's brother. Okay. And so what prevented you from getting in the family business?
So it was funny. So it was in 2001. So I never thought commercial roofing was glamorous or whatever. I enjoyed the cool like cars that he drove and everything else, but I didn't understand it at all. And I was just like, oh, commercial, like, but what was interesting is like my other uncle works for him. My dad works for him. Obviously my uncle had four kids. Two of the boys worked for him. Two of the girls, they were sort of, the modern day Kim Kardashians. They enjoyed the trust, maybe the trust side of it or whatever. But no, they worked for him for a little bit or whatever and did that. But when I think it was 2001 or two, I was laid off. I worked for a company that was in Chapter 11, and it took about 3 months. And they were like, "Yep, we're going to Chapter 13. We're done." And so I was out of a job. And so I went to my uncle and I said, "You know what? Maybe I'm going to do this." And he believed in starting from the bottom, learning the business and everything else. And I was like, "Wait a minute." And I'm like, well, I have a college degree. And I was a little bit egotistical at 24, whatever it was. And I'm like, but he wanted me to be I was selling flooring products and going to manufacturers and basically demonstrating how I can clean a floor or something like that. And I was probably too proud, too egotistical, but and even my mom was like, "Are you really going to make him do that?" And he's like, "That's what he's going to do."
I actually
So
love that about your uncle.
it was interesting because my cousin is actually the CEO now. He's been the CEO for a while, and now he's the CEO and chairman. But he did the same route, and he started when he was 12, 13, like climbing on roofs, when it was a smaller business. But like I never, and none of my cousins, we would always get together. None of them worked for him because a lot of this was like you got to start there. I mean, I lasted probably like honestly 2 months because I was still kind of looking for marketing jobs because they didn't have a marketing department. So I was like, well, I can be the marketing department. And didn't know anything. And I'm like, but I could be this or whatever. And he's like, marketing? We're sales and ops. Like, we don't need marketing. So like I never like, yeah, I wasn't gonna go and knock on doors. Like I was shadowing a guy who was like knocking on the front door, then running around to the bay and talking to the forklift drivers about how to clean. And I'm like, I don't have it. I don't have the tenacity. I don't have it. Like, and it was a humbling experience, but I lasted like 2 months and I'm like, thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah. But that's like, but those are the fun things to talk about sometimes because those shape us,
Yeah. Yeah,
and
because that's entrepreneurship. And I like it was humbling because like and it actually affected the next probably 15 years of my career because now granted I was working for a company, but like for my own, like, well, man, I could have said, all right, I'm gonna take a territory, I'm gonna crush it, I'm gonna sell, I'm gonna do all this stuff, I'm gonna make a ton of money. And you know what? Yeah, you're going to see it. Like I could have taken that approach and who knows what would happen. But I sort of backed away and I was like, no, I want a cushy, like I want a marketing job. Or like I was like, hey, I went to a liberal arts college. I know what I'm talking about. I graduated with a 3.5 or whatever like, no, like I'm better than this. But like as I went through my career, I always had that itch to start a business or to like take the leap or whatever, and I never did. And I always went back to that example of like, man, like, yeah, like, no, I'm good. No, I'm just gonna like, I'll go to another job or I'll do, if I've ever felt like I wanted to take a leap, I was always like, no, because like that's a lot of work. And it delayed, I think for the better, but it delayed a lot of the stuff. Like if I would have just believed in myself a little bit more. I didn't believe in myself at all. And I think that's it. I know. Like I didn't like I was like it even, the imposter syndrome. But it's like, when people tell you and they give you these things and they give you the compliments and even when I teach, they're like, "Oh my God, you brought real world." And you want to suck all that stuff up and then blast it out and talk to everybody about it, but it's like it's still for me, I'm like, yeah, yeah. I mean, I probably could have done better, but
yeah.
it was that leap that I mean that delayed any sort of jump in anything. Yeah, at least 15 years.
Interesting. Yeah, so everybody, if you're listening on in wherever you are, like if you can't see us, if you can't see us, you see the belief sign behind me. So at age 41, a client of mine, actually, I was his client. We were doing a sales transformation, and he asked us. He talked about the word. You got to believe what you do matters. He said, and I was like, and I didn't really think about it. And he kind of kept pounding into us. He says, do you believe what you do matters? Because I remember challenging him on, we were learning this like sales transformation work. And I said, I don't want to manipulate people. It seems like, like what you're kind of teaching me feels like I'm manipulating people. He goes, Casey, do you believe what you do matters? I go, yeah. He goes, would you ever try to convince somebody to do something where you win and they lose? I go, no, never do that. Why would I do that? He's like, of course you wouldn't. If you believe what you do matters, you're going to ask questions to help someone. If you see they have a problem, they might not see they have a problem yet, but you're going to ask questions. You're going to be patient. You're going to help them see it. And once they see it, they're going to sell themselves. But that's called value-based selling. Now, if you don't think they have a problem, if you don't think you can help them, you tell them right away and you walk away. And that's where the kind of, in my mind, the win the relationship, not the deal, came from. But it just further gave me the idea of like, this is actually the sign behind me, not only for me, but people I work with from a coaching perspective. But I talk to my kids about it. I'm like, only one person believes in you more than you. Well, the guy upstairs, but you got to believe in yourself more than anybody. Like your son's swagger in baseball. It's like, doesn't need to be like, I would say ride the fence of cocky and humble,
Always.
but
Yep.
not a douchey where people think you're a tool, but like confident because you believe in yourself.
Right. And that was, I will tell you, like, that has been the biggest deterrent. Like I said, I mean, it was like, and it was funny because, I would speak just like you. I mean, I'm speaking at staffing events. Like I spoke at Staffing World and AS Group and all these different events. And I had the luxury of doing that because of being a vendor on some sides and then working on the staffing side for a little bit at Talent Launch. And I go into it and I'm like, all right, yeah, like, do they care about this? Like, they probably already know this. Like, what I'm saying is stupid. My angle is terrible. And then, you deliver it and then you come back and you're like, oh my God, I actually thought about what you did and what you said. And it makes total, like, why am I not thinking that way? Like, you transformed the way I'm thinking. And even and now I'm taking it in a little bit and accepting those compliments. Before I was like, this person's stupid. Like I don't even know what I'm saying. And it is like, I mean, that was my biggest thing was just believing that that believing in, like, I'm trying to think of the right words, like, that it matters, but also that it's a definitive side. You're decisive. Like, you are actually telling somebody to do this and there is an absolute reason and you're making them think differently, and it is powerful when you do that because I get LinkedIn notes like, hey, I read that post that you did, and yeah, it was short, but like, oh my God, did it resonate with me? And I'm like, and those little things, like,
Save
I
those,
mean,
brother.
now I'm like, that's awesome. Like, that's great because, like, that's the whole purpose is like, be kind, educate, and give away your stuff for free, because honestly, status quo and apathy are going to deter people from doing any of the stuff. Like, just tell people what do you believe is the right thing to do in these different things, and you will get more from that than if get paywall it. Well, if you pay me 10 grand, I'll tell you what to do. Or like, or you don't believe in what you're saying and what you're selling. I mean, they can spot those people out now, especially as I get older and now I'm 46. Like, I can spot the BSers and the douchebags and like all, like, you can spot them all out, and you're like, man, authentic. Like, that's my word for a little bit the rest of this year and next year is like intentional authenticity. Like, just be you, and then you can believe. Like, it works.
Love it, man. Um, Going back to how you grew up, what were some of the values that were most important that your parents like really instilled in you that you and your wife have shared with your boys?
So I think I think the biggest one is accountability. I think they're like, you own the outcome. I think that's the biggest thing. I think we hide behind, like, well, I didn't do it. Well, I didn't do it. Well, I didn't, it's always, and especially now, like, I never grew up in the phone social media era. And I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff like in all of these things. And I think, you know, accountability is one of the biggest ones that I think, like, you are accountable for what you do, say, and act. And so think about it before you do all of it, and then own up to it if you make a mistake. And that it's okay to make mistakes. I mean, that's the other one is, and it's hard for me, like, being type A, like, and being just, I was just blessed with, again, not, things came easy to me. Like, I mean, it's taken me 20 years to know that maybe things don't come easy to everybody, because I set the bar, like, my parents set the bar high on me because they knew, like, that I could achieve it. And I think that I probably unfairly set the bar high on my kids. And that, I think there's, it's the whole thing about potential and just reaching your potential. And so I've shifted that that you know you have this high bar expectation you have to achieve. I've actually switched that for my kids and saying, like, it's about potential. Find your potential, like, reach it. And that's one thing that has changed, with my wife and I, is just because I think, and she's even like, Jeff, like, they're not going to get 4.0. Like, they're not, like, oh my God, let's celebrate a B. Like, it's one B. And I'm like, I mean, like, he's dumb. Like, I'm just gonna, like, I think he's dumb. And it's like, no, there's more than that. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think, like, yeah, accountability, I think, is the big one. I think, and I think the other one that has always worked for me has been just direct communication. Like, mean what you say what you mean. Like direct commun. Don't beat around the bush. Don't sit here and like, like if you have a thought, say it. Be respectful and say it, at the time that you think it. Because I think a lot of times we hide behind like, I don't really believe that at all. And then you go around, you start talking about how that whatever you heard was just terrible and that person's an idiot and all this stuff. And it's like, no, like have those conversations and be direct with somebody and respectful.
Was there a story for you growing up with your parents where you learned those skills maybe the hard way, where it really stuck for you? That's why it's important to you that you teach your kids that.
So the one that about accountability was it was the typical like early, I think it was early 90s, like I went to Walgreens and I was into sports cards, and so I went like we would ride our bikes up, we'd get sports cards. They weren't like so expensive as they are now, but we do all sorts of stuff, upper deck cards and all this. And you got this Becker's, and it was the sport card pricing guide. And I remember I rode up and I didn't have any money. I was like doing a paper route. Um, and I remember I wasn't getting paid. So I went up and I stole the Beckers, and I got caught. And I remember the guy was like, "What do you do?" It was a $4 magazine or $5, whatever it was. And I'm like, I put it in there. I'm like, oh, I don't know how that got in there. I don't know. And he's like, I think you do. Like, you put it like and there weren't cameras and all that stuff like back then, but it was like, I think it, like, I saw you put it in there. And I'm like, oh my God, are you going to tell my parents? And he's like, well, yeah. And he's like, but I'm telling your parents because it's the right thing to do. So, like, I don't want to get you in trouble. And so I remember he told my parents, and like my parents were, I mean, they were pissed. And like I was like, I mean, it wasn't like I robbed the bank. Like I was such a jerk back to them, and they grounded me for like 2 weeks, and I couldn't see my friends. I was so pissed. But they're like, at the end of that, I remember they're like, do you know why we grounded you? And I'm like, well, because like, yeah, like, I don't know, like you guys are just being jerks or whatever. Like they go, we grounded you because you didn't own up to it. You weren't accountable to your action. Like you gave every excuse in the world about like that you didn't do anything. Like if you would have just owned up to it, we wouldn't have grounded you. And I'm like,
Your kids know that story.
they don't actually. Like I'm gonna
Homework.
tell. Yeah, I know. I need to, because it was traumatizing, because I was always like the straight edge. Like I mean I never drank, smoke, any of that stuff. Like growing, like I was afraid of all that stuff. But I just remember I was like the entrepreneurial. Like, well, it's right there. I'm gonna procure this and take it. And
My
it
dad's in
was funny.
procurement.
Like, yeah, but like it was so funny. Like that was like, I remember that they're like, Jeff, like, what are you doing? Like you got to be accountable to your actions. Like what? Don't do that. Number one, think before you do this. And then like if you really need this, tell me the value of why you need this and we'll help pay for it. It's $4. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And they're like, no, 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 no. You got to think before this, you got to think during it, you got to think after it. And so like I always, like, especially in sports, this. I mean, just playing sports, I mean, the mindset is a huge thing, and accountability. Like own your outcomes. You make a mistake, own it. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've been able to teach my kids, because I mean, youth sports, I mean, it's crazy what youth sports is. Even down to my 9-year-old, parents are crazy, kids are crazy, everybody's going D1, everybody's going the MLB. And I think what's lost is accountability. And I think because it's everybody else's fault if you strike out. And I think that's resonated. Having three boys, that resonated a lot. Is just, guys, you got to own your outcome. You have to, and you've got to think about what you're doing, and because that all becomes a team player and all the other things.
Yeah, I think after interviewing 200 and you'll be getting. I mean, by the time this comes out, I might be getting close to like 290, maybe close to 300, which is crazy. And I've learned so much from so many dudes, and it's like free therapy every time I'm talking to dad. And one of the things it's further cemented me, like the three, I'd say these are superpowers in life that I keep working on each and every day, which is um, humility, vulnerability, and curiosity. And I think when those are present in leadership, in customer work, and even as dads, like I try to be as humble as I can as a dad to like say, don't talk about how, hey, dad's kind of a big deal. I have many leather bound books and like I wear, like joking Ron Burgundy stuff. But like I love sharing where I sucked and reminding them that
Yep.
because I find when I do that, my kids aren't afraid to fail. And they're more interactive. So like that's why I was joking. Like whenever I always like when dads tell stories, I'm like, your kids know? I'm like, because if you decide to do it, it's pretty cool. Like I've found, at least for me and like other dads I've talked to, like just seeing a new conversation spawn like, oh my God,
Yeah.
dad, I thought you were perfect because you're like a dad.
Right.
I thought you never mess up. And like I've told my kids stories when I got shit canned, like from like jobs as a kid. And I lied. I told stories where I got coached hard by, all this stuff, like throwing 4 interceptions in the first half, getting booed in the stadium. Like, I don't know. It's just it's kind of fun to sometimes do because like I found like sometimes your kids when they're ready to hear it, it's actually pretty fun to go through. So
Yeah.
if you decide to do it, I'd love to hear how it goes.
I'll let you know. Yeah, because honestly, it is funny because they think that like it's not even that like you're perfect or whatever. Like the amount of pressure that sometimes knowingly and unknowingly I put on my kids to never make mistakes and like and all this stuff there. Like I think that would help them out to be like, oh my God, like dad like actually made like he was dumb. He made a dumb decision. And yeah, this isn't like life altering or whatever, but it was
Right.
like I think that would help them because I've learned, I mean, again, it's a high bar. Like, and I'm trying to get away from that. Like, you guys got to be perfect. You got to do this. You got to do that. And like, they need to see and understand failure. And it's the fun failure stories. It's not the, bad ones.
Yep.
So yeah, definitely.
My what was I going to say? You made me think about like not only do those stories, but it also connects. I think it kind of gives grace a little bit.
Hmm.
And one thing that like because like I think my son was a hooper, and then COVID turned him into a golfer, and luckily it's been a great path for him. He's playing college right now, but my daughter's in the AAU basketball world. It's very very competitive and
Oh,
intense and crazy, and but it's fun for so many reasons. But one thing that kind of came to me through this journey is like the thing that I value the most. Do I want to see you make great golf shots? Yes. Do I want to see you get good grades? Yes. Do I want to see you make threes? Yes. Play great. But the most important thing is I want you to be nice. I want you to be a great husband, a great wife, a great friend, a great worker, someone who shows up on time, someone that says like, like I had someone recently, like when my son was in high school, one of the best compliments I ever got was when he was a senior in high school. He's captain of the golf team. And I got a phone call from my dad like at 9 o'clock on a night. And the guy didn't really know that well. I'm like, why is this dude calling me? And I was like, I'll call him later. So I didn't answer it. Leaves me a voicemail. I'm like, shoot, maybe it's important. So I check it. And he goes, hey, Case, call me back. So I called him back. I said, hey, sorry, Mr. Call. Is everything okay? He goes, yeah, I started to call so late. Can I tell you a story? I said, yeah. He goes, well, we were at tryouts today and my son made it, but I only think he made it. One, he's decent, but I hope that my son, when he's a senior, he treats people like your son treated my son. Like, well, what are you talking about? Did something happen? It's like, no, in a good way. I go, what happened? He said, my son was struggling big time in the first 2 or 3 holes, and your son like followed him. He was because my dad's son made a team. He was like the scorer. He like was coaching and picking him up. Like, dude, keep your head in it. You're good. Like, don't worry about like he literally the next like 5 holes he went part in. He ended up making the golf team. He goes, I just wanted to say you should know that. And I'm like, I remember I went into my son that night and I said, Ryder, I go, these are the things that trump anything you do in like a golf. Like if you shoot 65 and get a hole in one, I actually value the story that this dad told me more than that
yeah.
because that tells me you're going to be a good dude in life. You're going to be nice to people. You're going to be, and I think like as we learn about as we're growing through all this post COVID stuff, the power of EQ and how people forgot how to communicate, and cell phones have definitely not helped with that because it's this text happy culture. But like I've had some of my clients today said, "Oh my god, like it felt good to call somebody. They actually answered." Weird.
Yeah. Like my kids say IRL. So I learned what IRL, but like it is, and it's funny because that is like the conferences we go to, now staffing because we're that's an industry that we're in, and like it's just great to have conversations that aren't like where you can see people's like in 3D body movements, not just on a screen, or you're not because I think I almost value that more. I mean, being someone who, like, I've been working for 20 plus years, and like you're always going into an office, and now everything shuts down and you're working from home. So you lose just the power of the water cooler talk. And there's something to having those like interpersonal, just quick conversations that I think sometimes can really do a lot for just how you communicate in general.
Mm.
Now everything's on the phone, and it's, I mean, it's just, it's so hard. And it's hard. And I think EQ, yeah, I think it's been lost. I think critical thinking has been lost. I think that, it's just, we got to get back to some of that stuff, and we're humans and we want to be with other humans.
I
And I
think
think,
I think critical thinking got lost because people lost their curiosity. I think leaders lost their curiosity. I think parents lost their curiosity, and that's why I think Ted Lasso helped me get my curiosity back. And then now I'm like a curiosity psycho where I'm just like obsessed with it. And whenever my kids, and then I got taught the Socratic method of leadership, which is since you ask questions, you never get the answer. And so when my kids ask questions, or my clients, I say, I don't know, tell me what you think.
yep.
And well, sometimes you're like, I don't know. I'm like, well, you got to take a guess. I mean, I'd rather see you just make up red balloon or just make up something. At least you've tried, because not trying is actually not okay. That's not going to work. But at least if you try and you get it wrong, who cares? But at least you try.
Well, it's funny. I had my third job. I worked for this insurance company. It was truck insurance, and I had a boss who was a three-time national champion at Mount Union. He was the center, and he was a jerk, and he like rode me like I was young, whatever. And I remember brought him a problem. I can't remember the problem now, but I like this was 2001 or something like that. And I remember I said, hey, like, here's my problem. And he goes, all right. And I'm like, I will like, what do you want me to do? And he's like, and like, he was, he's football. Like, he goes, what the hell? Like, what are you doing? Like, why are you coming to me? And I'm like, what do you like? Whoa, like, why? He goes, I'm going to teach you one thing. He goes, you got to figure this out. He's like, you never come to me with a problem without three answers, three versions. Like one that you think I would want, and then one that we should do. And he's like, if you come to me with a problem, you come to me with those three answers. And I'm like, why? He goes, because I know you thought about it. And he's like, and I don't want, and it's funny because now it's, this guy is now, he's the, I think, CEO and chairman of that company. Like, he rose up, it's National Interstate Insurance Company, like one of the largest transportation insurance companies. They're out of Cleveland, massive. But like, I hated the guy. I hated him. Like, and I told him this. It was funny. I saw him about 5 years ago at an event, and I was like, Tony, I'm like, I hated you. I'm like, but you taught me this one lesson that I tell everybody who works for me, even peers, anything like young marketers that work for me or whatever. I'm like, you never come to me with a problem without, two or three answers.
Your kids know
Like,
that? Sorry.
yes, they actually know
Yes.
that story. I tell them
Okay.
that. Yeah,
There we
yeah,
go.
but it was funny. Like, that changed me a lot because, and I think that's the critical thing. Like, don't you just want me to answer the question for you? I mean, it's just, and that's not even a marketing thing. That's just like life. Like,
Yeah.
guys, figure out the answer. Take the time. Don't just be like, well, now what do I do? And I'm like, oh, but I think we've lost that. People just
Yeah.
don't want to make decisions.
I
And
think
it's just,
the one thing I'm excited about, and about in Cleveland, but where I live, like south of Seattle, like kids in high school are starting to get back into the trades,
yes.
which I love. I said we don't need the people who can type and talk like me. We need people who can fix shit. Like, because I can't
Yeah.
fix anything. My wife can fix a lot of stuff. I wish I could fix things. I'm horrible at that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny. We had a renovation done in our house, and this was about 2 years ago. And the masons were out, and they were, we had like a crawl space or whatever. They're doing this, and it's a Saturday morning. Our general contractor comes in. He's like, yeah, the guys are coming out today, Saturday morning. I'm like, cool. All right. And I love looking at it. Like, I can do some mild home renovations and stuff like that. Nothing crazy, but I was like looking at it. These two dudes are 71 and 73 years old. And I'm like, are these guys gonna like be okay? And my contractor, he's like, yeah. I'm like, what? Why? Like, and he goes, nobody wants to do it anymore. Like, it's grunt work and nobody wants to do it. He's like, there's so much money in this and electrician and plumber. It's like, but nobody wants to do it anymore. And so I told my kids, I'm like, there is all the honor in the world. If somebody wants to be a carpenter, if somebody wants to be an electrician, a plumber,
Love
like
it.
I can help you build that business up. So don't worry about that. I'm like, I can help you with the marketing. I'm like, if you like something, go do it. So I'm hoping somebody does something. Who knows?
That'd be awesome. What and we've talked about a lot, and you've helped answer some of my questions. Like I think like one of the questions I like to ask dads is like an area of your dad game that maybe you don't like where it's at. That like for me, I have to constantly work on patience, and um, I think, but talking to so many dads, my patience has gotten a lot better because I'm honest about it, and like there's times when I'm not patient. I'm like, damn it, I don't like that. I'll go apologize to my kids and say that's not the best version of me, or I'll say, hey, how can tell me how dad? Sometimes I'll just surprise them. I'll say, hey, tell me how dad can be a better dad this week. They're like, what? But it's like I want to know. Like if I'm expecting you guys to go get better, I want to get better, and I'm not full of shit like kids. Give me the answer, and I might not like the answer, but I'd rather know the truth.
Yeah.
So like maybe for you, Jeff, tell me what comes to mind, like an area of your dad game that maybe it's not always your best, but you're willing to work at it that might connect with other dads at home.
I think so I already said being present. I'll throw that out. I think everybody has that problem, especially ones that are starting their own business. There's always an area of that. So I think that's probably understood. I think mine is, and I kind of touched upon it a little bit, but like I think I struggle with what I want my kids to be and what they want to be. And it's the macrocosm of whatever you want to be when you're 45. I don't know what you're going to be, but like I almost want to dictate that. Like, well, you need to do this, then you need to do this, and then why aren't you doing this? And why? And they're like, and I remember like my oldest will do whatever I tell him, and that's not good. And because he's like, I'm like, you got to think for yourself because he's so inquisitive and curious with everything. And he's always consuming content, but he just wants to please. My second is like, dude, relax. Like, it'll be done. Relax. And then my third's like, whatever, dude. Like, he doesn't even tune me in. But I have this vision of what they should be. But the problem is, I don't have a vision. I just like it's almost like if I were creating myself again with their skill sets, this is what I would do. And I every day I have that problem, and I have to say like, no, they're their own people. Like wherever they land is going to be great if you give them support. And like, but I have this like puppeteering gene where I'm just like no, you need to do this, and then you got to go apply here, and then you got
Yeah.
to go do this.
I think
And
that's a lot. That'll speak to a lot of parents at home. I know that. Like, I don't know if do you ever talk to your wife about that? Like, ask for
yeah,
help.
all
Good,
the time. Yeah,
love
because
it, man.
it becomes the expectations. Like, what are you doing? Like, let them do whatever they want to do, and let them fail, and let them do
Yeah,
well, and let them do mediocre. And I'm like, no, 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 they're not on this path. And I find myself like almost daily, like just making those mistakes, and it's really hard because it affects the relationship, and it affects like I've heard them say like, Dad, like you're going to be mad at me if I tell you what I did, and I struck out 3 times. Like I didn't even like they don't tell me things because of that. And then they may not want me at games because they're like, well, Dad, like you just think I'm going to score 20 points or whatever. And I'm like, oh my god, like it's to that point where you're just like, and so I've had to hold back, and it's hard because I have a temper, and it's just, but it's just like impatience and all that. So it's hard because you just see it. I think it's you all the things you want to change in your
you.
in your previous self. Like, man, if I would have known all this, I would have done this. That like you almost use that for your kids, and it's
Yeah.
so wrong.
But I think just talking about it, dude, is like
Yeah,
half the battle and getting it out. And like I appreciate you being so honest with it because I think this is what people want to hear. I'm learning, and I like
yeah,
um I I think to me as once as I've gotten more experience as a dad, and I'm going to be worrying for till I'm 60 about my kids. Like that's what we do as parents. But like I think just talking about it and like if that's something that's really is hitting home for you, and then the more you keep talking about it, it's going to get better. But it's like and then I think the days, like I don't know if I told you this story when we first met, but when I first got into coaching, I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to become a coach and speaker. It just kind of happened, but it's like a calling for me. And so like the first couple of years, I was loved it. And I've told the story before on the podcast, but I'll tell it again. So I was so jacked up. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the best, and loving it, and all I want to talk about. And I remember like all of a sudden, like I was like texting podcast episodes to my friends. All of a sudden, they're like, dude, we don't like, we're happy for it, but we don't fucking care. Like, chill out. And like my wife's like, I'm like, did you listen to this episode? She's like, no, didn't have time yet. And all of a sudden I'm finding myself like, well, do you not like it? Like being totally
Right.
sensitive about it for no reason. And then I found when I got into coaching, I was so excited to tell these stories and like, this is how I was helping this person. And like, then all of a sudden I started coaching my kids and my wife on accident. And my wife, God bless her, she's a freaking beast. She's like, hey, we want Casey back. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, we don't want to get coached. We want you the dad. And you
Right.
want to talk about getting kicked right in the Johnson without a cup on. And huge shout out to her for calling me out. But great. And now I'm grateful for my parents and like other coaches and business leaders who've like taught me humility in life. Thank God I'm wired that way, because I was like, oh my God. And now I love telling that story to my kids. I love telling the people I work with in business perspective, because we all can get coached. And like when I joke with like my buddy who's a cop. I'm like, you're not telling me who you pulled over and like, hey, I got a guy going 35 and a 25. Can you believe that? Like, it's just your job. I want my buddy Steve the buddy. But it's just like, these are good reminders, like for us to like, that's why like this podcast has been so fun, Jeff. And I'll wrap up here because we don't get it going. Is we think our jobs are so cool and they're so awesome and we're really good at what we do, but our kids could give two shits.
Oh yeah.
They really
They don't
could.
even know what I do. Like, and
Yeah.
my wife, like, if you've ever watched Friends, like my wife thinks I'm a transponster. She's like, she goes, all I hear, because I'm in the basement, like and then she's upstairs. We both work from home. And they're like, I don't know. Like, you say marketing, like those are just words to me. I don't even know what they mean. And it's funny because I'm like, oh, well, I'm a big, I'm a partner at a performance marketing agency and blah, blah, like whatever. And they're like, dude, we don't care. You're dad. Like,
Yeah.
you're
Hey,
an
can we get ice
ATM
cream?
machine in an Uber. So like, and it's so funny when you like, that's what they think. And again, because you have these expectations of your kids, they have these expectations of you. And if you're not aligned at all, you will never have like meaningful conversations.
No, I think the one expectation every dad should be able to is just expect effort. That's all I care about. Expect effort. Whether you're going to read your best. If you're going to give homework, if you can look me in the eye and you got to see and that's your best you can do and you truly believe, you just, okay, I accept it. Now, it is what it is, but I think sometimes the world's run by C students, not all of them, but like a lot of C students are out there because they don't apply themselves, but they like to apply themselves to other areas. And I don't know. This has been fun. I can keep talking forever, dude. This is like really, really
Oh
fun.
man, it's good. Yeah. Well, I will say one thing. Like, it's funny. Every time practices, school, whatever, I say attitude and effort.
There we go.
I'm like, that's what I need. Attitude and effort. Like,
Solid.
and I've said it probably a million times.
I
So
actually used to have a
totally,
hat.
totally vibe on it.
I used to have a hat that said attitude is everything.
Yeah.
Love it, man. That's because
Sweet.
those are two things you have control over.
Right. Right. Yeah.
You
You
know,
have like the way you approach something and what you do when you're given the opportunity, that's what you got to do. Like, you have only yourself to blame if it doesn't work out.
love it. All right. Before we get into learning more about you and your company, Four City Digital, tell me about if you had to like summarize two or three actionable words or themes or nuggets of wisdom that you can draw from our conversation today that dads can take and like, man, Casey and Jeff, you guys talked about A, B, and C, and I'm going to really use these three things or two things to become a better leader in my home. Tell me what comes to mind.
I think, stay present. I think that's, the work-life balance thing, or life-work balance, whatever you want to say. I think, being a good dad means, being there and making sure that your kids know that you're there. And so I think that's it. I think, the vulnerability, like you've shown with me not telling my kids that story, I think being vulnerable, I have a hard time with that, and my wife knows it. And like, I can, I have a hard time when I make a mistake. I can't like own up to it, because it's like, and so I think that's it. And then that actually moves into like, let your kids live your lives, support them, work on expectations together versus what you are expecting of them, because it
Love
really
that.
does affect them. Like, I've seen my kids, it's affected them in a negative way when I think of them differently or where they should be versus them. And I think the sooner you do that, I'm sure it comes natural to some dads. Like, they just know it. they have that gene. But when you're almost that entrepreneurial spirit, like you want everybody on your same path and like, well, if I can do it, you can do it. And you should be doing it. And so I think that, I think it all comes back to that vulnerability and just kind of like, just let them live their lives and have great communication with them.
Yeah, I love that, dude. It's gold, buddy. And I think sometimes whenever it happens again, the power of just telling your kids, "Hey, Dad, sorry, I didn't mean to do that.
Yep.
That's not the dad I want to be." And but like saying, I actually one of the first episodes I did, like maybe episode 9, with my one of my good buddies I golf with, which I could not believe he did this because he's a really good dude. But he was like, "I want to do an episode with you on saying I'm sorry." I'm like, love it. So we literally, and he's like
Yeah.
a stud golfer, stud athlete, great guy, and he's an entrepreneur too in insurance. But he's like, the power of saying I'm sorry ends all drama.
Yep.
It ends
And
all
it's
drama.
and it's hard. I have a hard time doing that and admitting that I was wrong. And I will tell you that like I totally agree with that. I mean, that is the hardest thing to do because I'm so stubborn and like but like when I do it and when it's heartfelt, it's like you save yourself 2 days of not talking to each other and like just angry looks and everything else. And it's like all you just could have said, I'm sorry. Just like when I, stole that Becker's book. If you would have just owned up to it and said you were sorry, you would have been good. And I'm like, man, like
I gotta find
why?
a
And that's
Becker's
so
book, and
simple.
I gotta find a Becker's book, and I should like put that in when we post this on LinkedIn, a picture of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay,
Oh,
tell us about what Forest City Digital is, because people are like, what the who are they? And so how can
yeah.
people learn more about you? How can they learn more about Command the Huddle, and how can people find you?
Yeah, so you can always find me on LinkedIn, Jeffrey hyphen Stats, I think. And so I always know if you don't know me, you'll say Jeffrey. If you do know me, you'll say Jeff. So I just gave away my secret.
Dang it!
But I know. But yeah, Forest City. So it's actually a cool story. Forest City started from a buddy of mine, business partner now, who I actually spoke at his class about 13 years ago, his college marketing class. And he was the only one that came up to me and said, "Could you mentor me?" And I'm like, "Sure, whatever." And like I figured he'd never follow up with me. He followed up with me almost every 3 months for like 10 years, and he started this as sort of an e-commerce performance marketing agency. And then he was like, I want you to come, and be a co-founder with me and be a partner and everything. And I said, because I want to do this full time. And I said, all right. And so I made the switch earlier this year. And so we do basically it's SEO, social automation for e-commerce. And then we have a staffing um, area of focus too. So we work with staffing firms. And it's really on the performance marketing side. So like, are you getting you know the most applicants you can get? Are you getting the most leads and job orders you can get? And so focusing a lot on that, um, and I think really incorporating strategy into a lot of that because I think that's lost a little bit. Sometimes the tactics take over. So we focus a lot on just strategy and just execution, making it smart, getting it done, being proactive, and so we've had a good run. I mean, we've 4x'd our revenue over the last 7 months.
Good
Like
for
it's
you
been
guys,
great.
man.
Yeah, it's been cool. Like people are really like they get it. They're supporting us, and it's been great. Again, you never know. Like the your network is your net worth, and you just never know like how people connect or who connects or how like what they do, especially on LinkedIn. And it's only in these times, and I've always said it like when I need my network, they'll reward me, with just like connecting and stuff like that. And because I've always been a matchmaker, a love cat, as my one buddy tells me. I'm always the love cat, like connecting people and making sure there's a buyer for every seller. And he's like, dude, you're going to get it back when you need it. And I mean, it's happened and it's been
Love
great.
it.
So yeah, you can find forestcitydigital.com, find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, it's cool.
Awesome, dude. Well, congrats to you and your company. It's awesome to hear the success. Kind of what you just described. Actually, that what you do. That's probably why we've had enjoyed getting to know each other. It's like I call that I call it boomerang mindset, where you're constantly throwing boomerangs or you're constantly connecting, but I
Yep.
know you never keep score.
Right.
You never
Right.
keep score. And actually, I got a call this week from a former client who just got added to a vendor list that I introduced her to somebody else, and she says, you just changed my life. You just changed my company's life, because it's like a huge account they're going to get into now. They're going to hit the jackpot. I'm like, Awesome. And my first mind said, well, can I get, no, I don't want anything about it. She's like, I need to send you something. I'm like, no, you don't. You're not. She's like, I'm like, no, you're not going to send me anything. And to me, that's like this phase of life. I'm 48, and I just love, like, I've had my time in corporate. I've had my time on stage. Now it's like, it's serving others and seeing it like come back tenfold, like just by others having success. And when I do that, all of a sudden I meet people like you. I get, all these things keep coming. So I don't know, it's fun. All right. We're going to end it with a lightning round. This is where I just show you the negative hits of having too many hits in college, not bong hits, but football hits. Uncle Rico moment playing quarterback there. Your job is to answer these as quickly as you can. And hopefully my job is to make you laugh.
Okay.
Okay. True or false? They called you the Yvonne Lendl of John Carroll.
False.
Okay. True or false? You have a tennis ball tucked into your shorts right now.
False.
Okay, we tied after. Tell me the last book you read.
Oh, geez. Blue Ocean Strategy.
Okay. Favorite comedy movie ever is?
Dumb and Dumber.
So, you're telling me there's a chance. Okay. What if you could go vacation right now, you and your wife, no kids, where are you going?
Ooh, Italy.
Okay. If I went into your phone and went to the maybe the last 10 songs played, what would be one song your kids would make fun of you about?
Oh, geez. It was probably, man, I have a lot of Def Leppard. Probably Hysteria.
Let's go. The butt
Little
rocker.
80s rock. I love it. When I work, like I put on a little hairband music and I'm like, it just helps me for some reason.
Wow.
They're like, what is that? Like, is that classic rock? And I'm like, well, sadly it is now.
Wow. Do
So,
you ever wear leather pants?
no, try not to. I don't have the legs for it. I have chicken legs, so it would be like Ross when he had those, but it made a pace.
Oh God. Okay. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
Love Cat.
Okay. Love Cat. Now, Love Cat is killing it. It's in every bookstore. Amazon can't keep enough. It's in every airport. Barnes Noble, it's sold out. But now Netflix wants to make a movie. You were the casting director, and he didn't know who's going to star you in Love Cat.
Oh boy. Well, my doppelganger is Brian Hoyer, the backup quarterback. But I don't think he can act. I think I I think Jude Law. Like I feel like he could give like English makes him sound better. He'll make me sound better. So I think I'll go
He'll
with
bring out
him.
the vulnerability in you.
Yeah, he's got a little bit like he's still struggling a little bit up top. So like, but he's got enough hair that he looks cool, and so yeah, I think we'll go
There
with
you
that.
go. All right. And then last question. Tell me two words that would describe your wife.
Beautiful and stubborn.
There we go. Lightning round's complete. We both laughed. We both giggled. Dude, I love learning a little more about you. I love that we don't have a script and we just let the conversation flow. We let curiosity do its magic. And every time I get done with one of these, I feel like I went through therapy. So I'm grateful for you. And even though you said you want to work on vulnerability, just coming on a podcast and talking about this stuff is vulnerability. So shout out to you, bro. Appreciate you doing that. We'll make sure all this is linked. Wishing you and your family the best for this holiday season. This episode will come out in 2025, but I'm grateful our paths have crossed and wish you the best, brother.
Yeah, thanks, man. Same here. You've been great. It's awesome learning about you. And yeah, you're doing a great thing with this podcast. I've already listened to a couple episodes, and yeah, I think this is needed. So I hope you continue with it. I'm sure I'll be sending some people over your way that can give some good conversation. So
That'd
it's
be
awesome,
awesome.
man. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Bye bye.